This is the Farm Monitor. For over 50 years, your source for agribusiness news and features from around the Southeast and across the country, focusing on one of the nation's top industries, agriculture. The Farm Monitor is produced by one of the largest general farm organizations, the Georgia Farm Bureau. Now here are your hosts, Ray DeLessio and Kenny Bergamy.
All right, welcome to the show, and wow, welcome to the month of June. Dare I say, seriously? June already? Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
It certainly does, and we're going to try and have some fun over the next 30 minutes. However, one of the more serious issues facing farmers right now is input cost, and with the lack of adequate rain in recent weeks, now you have to factor irrigation into the mix. While one climatologist said we could be looking at yet another very dry summer. Of course, mental health always a concern in the ag industry, hence the focus on this recent summit. And fortunately, there are now a number of resources farmers can turn to for help, including their local extension offices.
And then later, could this Dougherty County wife, mother, and agribusiness owner be the next Mrs. United States Agriculture? And if so, how would she use that title to advocate for the ag industry? The story of Paula Jane Lewis and more starts right now on the Farm Monitor. With input costs reaching record levels, finding cheap, effective ways to irrigate is essential to a farmer's bottom line. However, with rain being hard to come by in recent months, the Monitor's Damon Jones spoke to one climatologist to see if there is any relief in sight.
With a number of Georgia's staple crops being planted or already in the ground, farmers are now crossing their fingers that Mother Nature will provide them with adequate rainfall this growing season. However, for a third of the counties within the state, it's been a rough start as they are under drought conditions.
It's become an issue, especially for crops like corn and the forage people. The forage people are really worried because if they don't have grass, they have to feed hay to their cattle. And this time of year, hay is usually pretty scarce because it's at the end of the winter. And so that has been an issue, especially for forage.
And that will soon extend to row crops like corn, cotton, and peanuts, where adequate amounts of water are vital to proper plant development.
If we do have a dry summer, they'll put a lot of stress on plants. Usually you have soil moisture that builds up over the winter months, and then once you hit that growing season, the plants are growing. They're using whatever water they can get, unless you're in a flood. And so if they don't get enough water, then you start to see things like the leaf curling on corn plants. They just don't really thrive very well. And so farmers either have to irrigate if they have that option, or they have to figure out ways to try to get water on their crops.
And that can be a very expensive proposition for the farmers this year, as they've seen input costs reach a record high. That's why using every tool at their disposal will be important to their bottom line.
If you're a dryland farmer, there's limited amount you can do. If you got irrigation, then of course you could run the irrigation, but that's expensive this year because fuel is so expensive. And so the timing of when you do that means that a lot of the bigger farmers are using soil moisture monitoring equipment to try to do really targeted irrigation. So they're only irrigating when they have to, and they're putting on just the right amount.
And that is largely due to the second straight year of a La Nina weather pattern. While that typically means less chance of relief, there are other factors that could work in the farmer's favor.
But in a La Nina summer, we typically have drier conditions, and we've seen a lot of the last number of droughts we've had over the last 20 years since I moved here have been La Nina driven droughts. And so that is something that farmers really need to worry about. But, the tropics are the wild card here. We don't know what's going to happen with the tropics.
Even though it is predicted to be an active weather season in the Atlantic, what path these storms take will determine just how much rainfall growers can expect over the next few months.
If all the storms come over Georgia, we could end up being really wet again this year. If they go over to Texas or if they go up the East Coast, we could be very dry, and that's going to be a big issue. So that's something we're watching. Of course, we know it's going to be an active season, but we don't know where those storms are going to go.
Reporting from Oconee County, I'm Damon Jones for the Farm Monitor.
According to the CDC, farming is one of the leading industries for suicide and can often be linked to stress with the weather, the economy, or other farm-related issues. To help combat this, UGA Extension, along with other groups, have come together to help those that are struggling by hosting a Farm Stress Summit. Our John Holcomb attended the event and has more.
High cost of production, endless hours in the field, low commodity prices, unpredictable weather. all things farmers face day in and day out, and eventually, those stressors can certainly take their toll, sometimes in the worst ways imaginable: addiction, health issues, even suicide. However, those struggling are not alone. In fact, there's an extensive group of people and organizations that are fighting to help farmers that may be facing those issues, and that was shown recently in Tifton at the 2022 Farm Stress Summit, an event that was put on by UGA Extension, UGA School of Social Work, Georgia Farm Bureau, and others that recognize their stakeholders and those they serve are hurting and may need help.
The mental health of these farmers, their viability, their longevity, their success, I think we're learning that it goes beyond, did we spray the right herbicide or did we feed the right feed? It's also, what's the environment at home? How are you feeling? What's your health? And so it's a bigger horizon of topics that we address. It's not one we're so well prepared for, but it's one that we're trying to grow in that conversation.
The summit had conversations around various mental health topics with experts and industry professionals that deal with farmers often, like Andrea Scarrow, Southwest District Extension Director, who says that Extension has had success with talking with farmers and producers about their mental health because of their placement in every county in the state.
I think that we've done more targeted outreach, especially through our agricultural production meetings in our counties, where a lot of our farmers come together for just helping their bottom line, knowing what to plant, how to manage both pests and weeds and the science of growing a crop, so to speak. So as we give them those scientific resources for agricultural purposes, we're able also just to say, hey, would you like your blood pressure checked at the same time? And here's a packet of information that you might enjoy reading on just how to maintain good work-life balance or reduce stress and talk about it.
And according to experts, conversations like those can really make a difference to someone that may be struggling.
I think when they do have interactions with other people, to hear you're appreciated, geez, this is tough right now, how are you doing? Just to have people expressing concern and care, and if they're noticing that maybe the farmer is struggling some, as I mentioned before, if they're noticing that the farmer's having a hard time taking care of their animals or keeping up with themselves or whatever, to just ask, how can I help? What's going on? How are you doing? You're important. I think doing that and hearing that from lots of places, hearing that from your pastor, hearing that when you go to the diner, hearing that when you go to see your lender, hearing that all over the place, and having farmers attaboy each other and support each other is going to be really important too.
For more resources on mental health and how to help those experiencing difficulties, you can go to farmstateofmind.org. Reporting in Tifton for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
All right, John, thanks so much. After the break.
I don't think it's a male versus female thing. I think that as women in agriculture, we have to learn to make our own lane.
And for Albany's Paula Jane Lewis, that lane, that avenue, if you will, leads to Orlando, Florida, and the title of Mrs. United States Agriculture. That's next when the Farm Monitor continues.
I'm Lee Dickey, co-owner here at Dickey Farms in Musella, Georgia, and we've been growing peaches for over 120 years. Dickey Farms was started by my great-great-grandfather. He first planted peach trees in 1897, and with the first harvest being in 1900. And it's been in our family the whole time. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father. So my grandfather's still alive, and my father's very much still a part of the business. So my grandfather still comes out to the farm every day and rides around and is very much a part of the action. And my dad is very much involved. So it's very much a family business. It takes everybody, takes a lot of hands to make everything come off. Peaches have been grown here a really long time, and part of it is the weather, another part's the soil. One thing that Georgia's known for is how good the peaches are, how sweet the peaches are. So I climate, the soil, all those things play a major factor into where peaches are grown here. Interesting, the changes that have happened in terms of our farm market over the years. Used to, there was lots and lots of roadside stands just selling peaches and fresh produce, and I think as those have declined and the consumers are looking more to interact with the farms and know where their food and produce comes from, I think a lot of the big growers like ourselves have opened up farm markets. And you know, one thing we've gotten really well known for, we're making homemade fresh peach ice cream every day, and so I think a lot of people have gotten to know us for our ice cream, but certainly for our peaches. Year-round full-time employees, we have about 12 to 15, and then in the peak of the summer it spikes up to over 120 employees. We have a very rigorous food safety program. We're part of we use a global GAP audit scheme, so it's a very rigorous methodology that we follow in terms of the things that we do and the precautions we take in terms of hand washing, handling the fruit, everything from the boxes they go in to anything that we use on the farm, even how we harvest and plant our rows and soil erosion. So it goes deeper than just the handling of the fruit. It's kind of an overall picture of the farm, and we get an audit every year, so it's a pretty strenuous program. The farm gate value of peaches is around 30 to 35 million, with an overall economic impact in the state of around 70 to 80 million. I'm Lee Dickey, and I'm proud to be a Georgia peach grower.
Well, later this month, Albany's Paula Jane Lewis will head to Orlando as one of 7 finalists vying for the overall title of Mrs. United States Agriculture. As a young girl growing up in Soperton, Georgia, Paula immersed herself in every aspect of agriculture. She also participated in both 4-H and FFA, and later made her way to ABAC, where she earned a degree in diversified agriculture. Aside from Paula's knowledge of ag, there is also her larger-than-life personality. It is infectious. And after hearing her story, like me, you too will come to the conclusion that those judges in Orlando are going to be swooned over by Paula's presence. The person on your left is Georgia Farm Bureau Agency Manager Jonathan Gibson. Jonathan says the first time he met Paula Jane Lewis, he knew right away she was an impressive person. He also tells me traditionally, Dougherty County hasn't been at the forefront of telling its agricultural story. But in Paula, they may have found the perfect spokesperson.
I think that as an industry, agriculture is going through so many changes right now. Policy changes, different shifts in heads of leadership. I mean, we're electing a new commissioner anytime. So a lot of change coming in our industry. And so I believe it is paramount right now that everyone in the industry, myself included, my husband included, other farmers and ranchers, teachers, everyone who has a hand in the ag industry, it's our time now to speak up, to advocate for our industry, to show everyone what really happens in our industry, and not to let lobbyists or policymakers who aren't immersed in it make those decisions for us and for our families. Right now is the time for us to shine a light on what it's like to be out here, what it's like every day, what we struggle with, what we thrive in. It's time now for folks to see that, and if I can serve in any capacity through this pageant just to shine a light on what Southwest Georgia does agriculturally, where we thrive and where we struggle, where we need help, where we need some a hand up from those who are here to help us, from those policymakers, from those lawmakers, from commissioners, from governors. If I can shine a little light on that, that makes it all worth it.
For those unfamiliar with the pageant, It's something that could definitely serve as Paula's platform should she be crowned Mrs. United States Agriculture. Since its debut in 2014, agricultural advocacy has spread throughout the United States, covering all ages. And although participants aren't required to have an ag background, the majority, like Paula, have impressive resumes and heavy involvement in the ag industry.
I'm proud to be representing Georgia and the diverse landscape that we have in the ag industry, and to really shine a light as a woman in agriculture, where usually there's not a really great space for us as we age in agriculture. And I don't think it's a sexist thing. I don't think it's a male versus female thing. I think that as women in agriculture, we have to learn to make our own lane. If there's not a lane for you, make one.
Right. Was your lane that, Pat, was the pageant and the title of Mrs. United States Agriculture, was that your lane?
I never saw it coming. This is something that kind of fell in my lap, and I decided to go for it. And so here we are, a month away from this national pageant, which I hope I'm prepared for. But more than anything, I look forward to meeting the other women in my category who are like myself, who have had to forge a way as women in the agriculture industry, to see what they do every day, to see how they approach it mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and how that feeds into their American agriculture story.
In addition to her incredible personality, another thing that stands out about Paula is the hair, something Paula takes a lot of pride in. The bigger, the blonder, the better, according to Paula. In fact, her trademark locks drawing comparisons to a country music legend.
There's a joke around my church about Dolly Parton, and while they don't pay me like Dolly, nor are my assets like Dolly, if I can pay homage to such a great woman, I will. We'll let that blonde hair just fly.
What is it about being outdoors? Is it being around the animals? Is it a service you're providing to the community? What keeps you going?
All of it. When you get to see so many facets of the industry, as I have been blessed to see, you learn to recognize every single part as a blessing. And there are hard days, and there are sweet days, and there are really long days. There are days that I don't get to see Max but for a couple of hours. But I know that the reason he puts his boots on every morning is for us. And I know that the reason I get up and do what I've got to do every day is for us. And it's also to show my children and the next generation what it takes to keep this world beautiful and spinning. And all we can hope is that when we look back, that we did right by every decision that we were faced with, that we were graceful to ourselves and to others, that we shared the gospel, that we fed our family, that we fed others, and that we were generous the way the Lord calls us to be generous, because He's given us much and we can give much to others out of that.
Isn't she just the best? Amazing lady. Time for our final break. Up next, it's a fascinating look at the science behind the chemicals used to battle and, in some cases, prevent wildland fires.
Starting a fire is as easy as this. Putting it out is more complex. To extinguish a fire, one of three things needs to happen. You need to eliminate the fuel, what the fire burns, or make the fuel less combustible. You need to remove the oxygen that the fire needs to breathe, or you remove the fire's heat. For centuries, water has been used to extinguish fires. It both cools the fire's fuel and smothers the flame, depriving it of oxygen. But like all tools, water has its drawbacks. It evaporates easily and fails to cling well to a fire's fuel source. Fortunately, the effectiveness of water can be supplemented with chemicals. Chemicals can be used to treat fuels to make them less combustible, even after the water has evaporated and the chemical has dried. An average surface fire on the forest floor might have flames that reach 3 feet in height and temperatures close to 1,500 degrees. Wildland fire chemicals can reduce this fire intensity, making it possible for firefighters to work the fire line. In short, these chemicals are used to protect life and property. It's important to remember, however, that these chemicals by themselves are not used to put out fires. Rather, they're designed to slow the fire, allowing time for ground crews to put it out. So how are these chemicals applied? By either a direct or indirect attack. In a direct attack, chemicals are applied on top of the burning fuel so that the water content can smother and cool the flames. In an indirect attack, the fire chemicals are applied ahead of the fire so that it coats the unburned fuel between the fire and the retardant line. Wildland fire chemicals fall into one of two categories. A suppressant is a chemical agent that extinguishes combustion by direct application to the burning fuel. A retardant, on the other hand, reduces the flammability of combustibles by a chemical action. Let's see some examples of each. Water, foams, and water enhancers are suppressants. A Class A foam suppressant is almost all water, 99% or more. But the chemicals that are added to that water affect how well the resulting foam clings to the fuel surfaces. They also increase the ability of the water to soak into the fuels. Foams are often used in direct attacks and for mop-up actions and pre-treating fuels for prescribed burning. Another suppressant that works well in a direct attack is a water enhancer. Water enhancers, too, are mostly composed of water, about 97%. But the water enhancer changes the physical characteristic of the water, thickening it to increase its effectiveness, enhancing its adhesion to fuels as well as decreasing drift when dropped from the air. It's also used in the protection of structures and other resources. Water enhancers and foams work well in direct attack. Retardants work best in indirect attack. Why? A long-term retardant contains fertilizers or retarding salts that alter the way a fire burns. It decreases the fire's intensity and slows its advance, even after the water it contains has evaporated. When considering effectiveness of the chemicals, you should know foams only last for a few minutes. Water enhancers generally last less than an hour, and retardants may last days to weeks. You should also know that the use of chemicals in high winds, extreme fire conditions, or high flame heights may not be effective. Retardants, for example, may not be effective when flame lengths are greater than approximately 4 feet high. The USDA and U.S. Forest Service have produced a series of videos that discuss wildland fire chemicals in more depth. We hope you'll view each one to learn more about these important topics. You can also find more details on the Wildland Fire Chemical Systems website. Here you'll find information on safety, environmental issues, product quality, mixing ratios, aerial delivery systems, and other topics related to knowing when and how to use wildland fire chemicals.
Well, before we send you on your way, a friendly reminder that for all the latest ag news regarding food, recipes, and what's happening on Georgia farms, be sure you check out all of our social media platforms, including farm-monitor.com.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time right here on the Farm Monitor. Stay safe and have a great week.